Hi and welcome to Tash Talks, where today we will be talking through the difficulties of grief and how we can manage daily life after experiencing the loss of some kind. I will start by explaining the different types of grief and the process many people go through, and will provide some top tips for dealing with grief. Grief is defined as a powerful emotion and physical reaction to the loss of someone or something, and is often characterised by deep feelings of sadness and sorrow, longing to be reunited with that person again. Anger is another powerful emotion often felt, and this can be associated to the circumstances of the death and dwelling on this. One of the first pieces of information I say to clients who are grieving is that nobody will ever expect you to recover from grief completely, but you will learn to live without this person and manage the emotional pain felt in a healthy, sustainable manner. The length of time it takes to reach this stage differs for each person due to individual differences in emotional strength and different contexts. Cultural values may affect attitude towards death, remembrance of the deceased and emotional displays. For example, those who believe in the afterlife may feel reassured their loved one is in a safe place in another life, reducing the severity of the grief symptoms. The level of dependency on the departed can cause complications. For example, if the person deceased dealt with all the household bills and finances, having to learn to do this can cause great sadness and anxiety adjusting to this new way of living. Complicated grief is usually severe and prolonged for over a year and interferes with daily functioning and includes symptoms of emptiness and hopelessness, yearning to be with the deceased, detachment and isolation from friends and family. Disenfranchised grief occurs when a person's mourning is restricted in some way. For example, society may refuse to acknowledge their loss for various reasons, such as the loss of a pet may receive less sympathy, or society stigmatise the circumstances around the loss. If it was a pregnancy-related loss, such as a miscarriage, this may bring about feelings of guilt, and you may avoid telling others in fear of being blamed. Disenfranchised grief can make it difficult to accept the loss if society does not recognise this as a loss. Social support is vital to recovery, so by others not recognising and understanding the deep grief felt can enhance these negative feelings as you may begin to push or hide your emotions. Repressing emotions can make the symptoms of grief more severe and lead to emotional and physical problems, such as headaches, difficulty sleeping, and stomach problems. So it is important to let yourself grieve. One of the hardest challenges is adjusting to the new reality of living in the absence of a loved one. This may involve adjusting your daily routine, and you may develop a new sense of identity, wisdom, and meaning in life, which some research has suggested is a positive effect of loss. It is important to recognise these positives, as this often is viewed as taboo to suggest a positive outcome, but it is healthy to have the awareness of all emotions, the good, the bad, and the ugly. There are 4 main tasks of mourning: accepting the reality of the loss, working through the pain of grief, adjusting to life without the deceased and maintaining connection to the deceased while moving on with life. And there are 5 stages that explain this. Number 1. Denial. This is a temporary defence mechanism. Number 2. Anger. Looking for source of blame or angry at the world. 3. Bargaining. Looking back and asking a lot of what-if questions, wishing you could go back and change things. Number 4. Depression. Begins to accept fate. Overwhelming depression and hopelessness start to kick in. Number 5. Acceptance. Accepting the inevitability of death, finding peace in acceptance. The dual process model was developed after the 5 stages of grief and is a more comprehensive model of explaining the experience of grief. It suggests that grief is a linear experience, and grieving in manageable chunks instead of tackling it head-on is a healthy method. The 2 processes are loss-orientated stresses, such as looking through pictures of loved ones, and restoration-orientated stresses, such as reading a book. The process of moving back and forth between these two stresses is called oscillation, and an example of this is grief journaling about the passing of somebody, which is followed by doing household chores. Moving on to some 5 top tips for coping with grief. Number 1. Know that grief is different for everyone. There is not one solution and one set length of time to overcome and the symptoms associated with grief. It is an individual process. Talk to friends and family, stay connected, but allowing alone time to express your emotions is healthy. It's finding the right balance for you. 3. Understand the stages of grief that we mentioned earlier. Give yourself permission to feel and prepare for reoccurring grief. 4. Take care of yourself. Regular exercise, eat healthy food, and get enough sleep. Avoid recreational drugs and keep alcohol use to a sensible recommended level. 5. Journal about positive memories, or perhaps write a letter to the deceased loved one. Grief comes in waves, and some triggers are often unexpected and can wash over you and knock you down and become distracted. Acknowledging that these are triggers is the first step. Knowing the anxiety felt is a temporary feeling and developing coping strategies can help you to adopt to this new way of living. Mindfulness practice can help you to acknowledge the negative feelings as passing, but teaches you it is okay to sit with them and understand what it feels like to be angry. For example, acknowledging what parts of your body tense up as you feel anger. What sensations are you experiencing? Mindfulness journaling has similar benefits of seeing the negative thoughts as passing and can be useful to pick out patterns to discover some unconscious feelings. This process can be done with a therapist or as an individual, which over time increases self-awareness and enhances emotional development and strength. In my practice, I don't use the term move on, as life moves forward and you need to move with it. As each day goes by, you move forward, but the phrase of moving on suggests you need to get over the passing of a loved one. Moving on or moving forward does not mean forgetting, but learning how to live without this person. Grief will not end, but you will learn to live with it. Everything in life is temporary, the good and the bad. So when you are feeling low, know that this is a passing feeling, and when you are feeling happy and joyful about life, embrace it. Thank you for listening. If you have found this podcast distressing in any way and require further support, please access the resources in the comments section below.